Imagine Rome on the edge of chaos. The Republic, once an indomitable force, now stands fractured, as power-hungry generals and politicians vie for control. In the heart of it all, Gaius Marius rises, a man with ambitions as towering as the city itself. But in 87 BC, the storm finally breaks, and Rome plunges into civil war, a conflict that would forever alter the Republic's fate. The conflict between Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla is one of the most dramatic and consequential episodes in Roman history. It was a fierce and deeply personal rivalry between two ambitious leaders that set the stage for the eventual fall of the Roman Republic. Their struggle for power, rooted in political ideals and personal grudges, left Rome scarred, shifting its course toward autocracy and civil strife. Marius' military reforms not only bolstered his reputation, but also made him a hero to the common people. After his decisive victories in the Eucimbrian War, 113-101 BCE, Marius became one of Rome's most celebrated figures, securing 6 consecutive terms as consul, an unprecedented feat in Roman history. His popularity with the plebeians and army put him on a collision course with the conservative elite, the Optimates, who saw Marius as a threat to traditional Roman values. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, in contrast, was an aristocrat from a prestigious but impoverished patrician family. Unlike Marius, Sulla embraced the values and customs of the conservative Senate, aligning himself with the Optimates. He also rose to prominence as a skilled general and diplomat during the Jugurthine War, 112-105 BCE, serving under Marius himself. Sulla's military successes, charisma, and sharp mind helped him gain favor among Rome's elite. The trigger for open conflict came in 88 BCE, with the rise of Mithridates VI, the ambitious king of Pontus in Asia Minor, modern-day Turkey. Mithridates seized Roman provinces and massacred thousands of Roman citizens, sparking what became known as the First Mithridatic War. Rome's response was swift. An army would be sent to confront Mithridates, but the question was, who would lead it? Initially, the Senate awarded the command to Sulla, then a consul. Marius, however, coveted the command, and persuaded the tribune of the plebs to transfer it to him. In response, Sulla took the shocking step of marching his troops on Rome, marking the first time a Roman general used his army to seize power in the capital. This unprecedented act stunned Rome and set a dangerous precedent for military intervention in politics. Sulla forced Marius to flee the city and reasserted control, reclaiming the command of the campaign against Mithridates. Yet, while Sulla departed for Asia Minor to confront Mithridates, Marius quietly plotted his return to power. In Sulla's absence, Marius forged alliances with powerful political figures, including Lucius Cornelius Cinna, a supporter of the Age Popularis, the faction representing the common. Together, Marius and Cinna raised an army and launched an assault on Rome, triggering the First Roman Civil War. By 87 BCE, they had overpowered the Senate's forces and entered the city, leading to a brutal purge of Sulla's allies. Many senators and optimates were executed, and Marius and Cinna seized control, effectively ruling Rome as dictators. In 86 BCE, Marius claimed his 7th consulship, but his health was failing. Only days after taking office, Marius died, leaving Cinna as the dominant political figure in Rome. The stage, however, was far from clear. Sulla was returning from his campaign in the east, ready to reclaim what he saw as his rightful position. In 83 BCE, Sulla returned to Italy with a seasoned and loyal army. Rome braced itself for another civil war, and this one would be even bloodier. Sulla's forces met little resistance, as his supporters rallied to his cause, and even some of Marius's former allies defected. In a series of brutal battles, Sulla crushed the forces loyal to Marius and Cinna, and by 82 BCE he entered Rome as an unstoppable conqueror. Determined to rid Rome of his enemies and reshape the Republic, Sulla declared himself dictator for life with sweeping powers. In his capacity as dictator, he initiated the proscriptions, a campaign of political purges targeting Marius's supporters. Lists of enemies of the state were posted publicly, allowing Sulla's soldiers and even citizens to hunt down and kill anyone named. Wealth and property were confiscated, and thousands of Marius' allies met brutal fate. Sulla also enacted reforms to curb the influence of the populares and strengthen the Senate's control. His reforms, while aimed at stabilizing the Republic, came at a high cost. Sulla ruled with ruthless authority, eroding Rome's democratic structures and leaving a legacy of fear and distrust. Finally, in an unprecedented move, Sulla voluntarily stepped down from his dictatorship in 81 BCE and retired, only to die a year later. Imagine a world where the bustling streets of Rome echo with the sounds of haggling merchants and the clatter of chariots, all underpinned by the often overlooked lives of enslaved people. These individuals were woven into the very fabric of Roman society, essential not just for agriculture and mining, but also for domestic chores and skilled trades. Though they were regarded as property, their impact on the Roman economy was monumental. Enslaved individuals could be found in every corner of Roman life, from the grandest households to sprawling farms and even military camps. While some enjoyed relatively better conditions as tutors, physicians, or scribes, others faced grueling labor in mines or on vast estates known as latifundia. The stark contrast in living conditions painted a complex picture of life as an enslaved person, where household slaves often fared better than their counterparts toiling in the bowels of the earth. But it wasn't all drudgery. Though their lives were riddled with challenges, physical punishments, lack of autonomy, and the constant threat of abuse, some managed to seize opportunities for freedom through a process called manumission. This glimmer of hope offered a chance to break free from the chains of oppression. First Servile War, 135–132 BC. The stage was set in Sicily, where the relentless toil under harsh conditions ignited the flames of rebellion. Led by the charismatic Eunice, who claimed prophetic powers, and his fierce comrade Cleon, enslaved people banded together in a desperate bid for liberation. Their uprising became a fierce battle that pushed Rome to intervene militarily, revealing just how deeply unrest had taken root. 2. Second Servile War, 104–100 BC. Not long after, the embers of rebellion flared up again in Sicily. This time, Salvius and Athenian rallied thousands of enslaved people, united by a shared dream of freedom. The Roman army ultimately quelled the revolt, but the echoes of their struggle reverberated through the Republic, starkly highlighting the tensions simmering beneath Rome's grand facade. 3. The legendary Third Servile War, 73–71 BC. Most famous of all slave rebellions, the Third Servile War, also known as the Gladiator War, was led by none other than Spartacus, a Thracian gladiator who became a symbol of resistance. His daring escape from Capua, alongside fellow gladiators, ignited a massive uprising that swept across mainland Italy. This wasn't just a localized revolt, it threatened the very heart of Roman authority. Spartacus and his growing army of escaped slaves triumphed against Roman forces time and again, sending shockwaves through the Senate. The Republic, caught off guard, had to summon its finest generals, Marcus Licinius Crassus and later Pompey, to restore order, illustrating just how serious the situation had become. By the 1st century BC, the Roman Empire's insatiable appetite for enslaved labor had reached staggering proportions. The expansion of territories brought waves of captured individuals destined for a life of servitude. This brutal system sparked social unrest, particularly among the lower classes, both enslaved and economically marginalized. The harsh conditions faced by slaves, especially those forced into gladiatorial combat, were a clarion call for rebellion. Formation of the rebel army. The uprising began in 73 BC, when Spartacus and about 70 gladiators, initially held in a training school at Capua, escaped and fled to Mount Vesuvius. As they camped on the mountain, their numbers quickly grew as enslaved people from nearby estates joined them, inspired by the promise of freedom. What started as a small rebellion soon evolved into a well-organized and rapidly expanding army. The rebel forces, though poorly equipped, utilized guerrilla tactics and surprise attacks, catching the Roman legions off guard. In early skirmishes, Spartacus's army defeated several Roman forces sent to suppress them, including a Praetorian unit led by Gaius Claudius Glaber. The rebels' ability to outmaneuver and ambush Roman troops led to a series of victories that greatly boosted their morale and bolstered their rank. Major figures involved. 1. Spartacus. Spartacus was the primary leader and strategic mind behind the rebellion. He displayed impressive military skill, employing unorthodox tactics and adjusting his strategies to counter the Roman forces' strength. His vision and leadership kept the army united and focused, making him the symbolic heart of the rebellion. 2. Other leaders, e.g. Crixus and Gannicus. Crixus, a Gallic gladiator, and Gannicus, another prominent figure, served as trusted commanders under Spartacus. Crixus led a faction of the army that was later defeated, highlighting the internal challenges within the rebel ranks. Gannicus remained loyal to Spartacus, and was known for his bravery and skill in battle, becoming a notable figure among the rebels. 3. Roman commanders. Marcus Licinius Crassus, a wealthy and ambitious general, to lead the response. Crassus implemented strict discipline within his legions and brought a level of ruthlessness to the campaign. Toward the end of the war, Pompey the Great returned from campaigns in Spain and became involved in the final stages, ultimately claiming credit for the suppression of the revolt. Roman strategies and responses. After early failures to suppress the rebellion, Crassus took command and pursued a more organized and strategic approach. He implemented harsh measures, including decimation, a brutal form of punishment where 1 in 10 soldiers was executed, to restore discipline in his legions. Crassus's aggressive strategy involved building fortifications to contain Spartacus's forces in southern Italy, attempting to limit their movements and cut off their supplies. Factors leading to rebel defeats. One of the major factors contributing to the downfall of the rebellion was the failed attempt by Spartacus to lead his forces northward, potentially out of Italy. A division within the ranks, particularly after Crixus split off with his followers, weakened their unity. Additionally, when Spartacus and his forces attempted to negotiate with pirates for passage to Sicily, they were betrayed, and the hoped-for escape plan fell apart. Eventually, Crassus's strategy of containment, combined with the arrival of Pompey, who intercepted and eliminated escaping rebel forces, led to the final defeat of Spartacus' army in 71 BC. The name Julius Caesar resonates through the ages, standing out even among the many illustrious rulers of the Roman Empire. While the empire itself stretched across vast territories, dominating much of the known world, Caesar's legacy is one of audacity, military genius, and political savvy. He wasn't just another ruler, he was a conqueror who outshone legends like Hannibal and Alexander the Great. Caesar's military exploits were nothing short of spectacular. He was the first to seize the rich territories of Arnu and Oceania, imposed tribute on the fierce tribes of Germany and Britain, and extended Roman authority deep into Asia and Africa. His conquests included the formidable Gaul, where he famously defeated Vercingetorix, the leader of the Gallic resistance, in the epic clash at Alsace. But that was just the beginning. He went on to claim victory at the Battle of Zela against Pharnaces Taciud of Pontus, declared, Vini, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered, and triumphed over Ptolemy Three in Alexandria. Not to forget, he bested the notorious Pompey at Pharsalus, walking a path of victory that brought much of the ancient world under the yoke of Roman rule. Born in 100 BC into the patrician family of the Julii, which boasted a divine lineage tracing back to Venus herself, Caesar entered a world of high expectations. Although his family wasn't wealthy, their noble ancestry granted him a prestigious standing. His father, Gaius Julius Caesar, held the title of praetor, while his mother, Aurelia, was a respected matron. This blended background of political influence and familial connections helped shape Caesar's ambitions and alliances in a tumultuous political landscape. The Roman Republic was like a boiling cauldron, bubbling with class conflict and political intrigues. Growing up amidst such chaos, Caesar received a robust education in rhetoric, law, and philosophy, studying under some of the best minds of his time. His uncle by marriage, Gaius Marius, and his political mentor, Cinna, played pivotal roles in shaping his early political ambitions. The early years of Caesar's life were marked by dramatic shifts, including the rise and fall of Marius and the fierce civil wars led by Sulla. These tumultuous events didn't just threaten his life. They hardened his resolve and taught him the art of survival in a world where alliances were as fragile as glass. At just 16, Julius Caesar found himself thrust into a whirlwind of political chaos. Following the death of his father, he became the head of his family during the tumultuous civil war between the notorious Sulla and his uncle, Gaius Marius. As fate would have it, when Marius and his ally Lucius Cornelius Cinna seized control of Rome, Caesar was nominated as Flamen Dialis, the high priest of the Temple of Jupiter, and married Cinna's daughter Cornelia. It seemed like destiny was on his side. However, the tides turned dramatically when Sulla emerged victorious. In a ruthless purge of Marius's supporters, Caesar faced the brunt of Sulla's wrath, stripped of his inheritance and priesthood, and forced into hiding after his marriage was threatened by a divorce. But this setback was just the beginning. Thanks to the intervention of his mother's family, Sulla eventually eased his persecution, allowing Caesar to chart a new course. In 81 BC, seeking to escape the fallout in Rome, Caesar joined the army. He served under notable generals Marcus Minucius, Thermucius Thermus in Asia and Servilius Isauricus in Cilicia. His military acumen shone through when he was awarded the civic crown for his bravery at the siege of Mytilene, and later impressed King Nicomades during a diplomatic mission to Bithynia. Returning to Rome after Sulla's death in 78 BC, Caesar began his political ascent as a military tribune. By 69 BC, he had been elected as quaestor of the province of Hispania, and he continued to rise through the ranks, eventually becoming governor of Hispania Ulterior. While in Hispania, he led campaigns against local tribes, solidifying his reputation as a formidable leader. In 59 BC, the political arena was set for a dramatic showdown as three candidates vied for the consulship: Caesar, Marcus Calpurnius Bibulus, and Lucius Lucius. The election was anything but fair. Caesar sought the support of Cicero and formed an alliance with the wealthy Lucius, but the entrenched establishment threw its weight behind the conservative Bibulus, who even received bribes from the notorious Cato the Younger. Amidst this political intrigue, Caesar found himself entangled in the web of Crassus's political debts while also trying to appease Pompey. With the Senate resisting his proposals for eastern settlements and land for veterans, Caesar understood the delicate balance of power. To secure his influence, he orchestrated a reconciliation between Pompey and Crassus, culminating in the creation of the First Triumvirate. This powerful alliance was further solidified by Pompey's marriage to Caesar's daughter, Julia, and Caesar's own marriage to Calpurnia, daughter of a prominent consul. Caesar's bold proposals for redistributing public lands to the poor ignited fierce opposition, yet he had the backing of Pompey and Crassus, willing to use force if necessary. When Bibulus attempted to thwart the new law by declaring the omens unfavorable, he was met with Caesar's armed supporters, who overwhelmed him. In a scene straight out of a Roman comedy, Bibulus was humiliated, doused in excrement, and retiring in fear for the rest of the year, while the public mockingly dubbed the period the consulship of Julius and Caesar. As the political landscape continued to shift, the aristocracy tried to curb Caesar's power by assigning him governorships that limited his authority. Despite these attempts, he was appointed governor of Cisalpine Gaul and Illyricum, later adding Transalpine Gaul to his command, amassing 4 legions at his disposal. Though his proconsular term was limited to 5 years, he navigated the challenges with cunning, narrowly avoiding prosecution upon its conclusion. Julius Caesar was not just a brilliant general, he was also a savvy opportunist. Deep in debt and hungry for glory, he saw his governorship as a golden opportunity. With the promise of wealth from both military exploits and the less savory practice of extortion, he set his sights on Gaul, a land ripe for conquest. At the helm of 4 legions, Caesar eyed the chaotic territories bordering his provinces of Illyricum and Gallia Narbonensis. Gaul was a land of fierce tribes and shifting alliances, and the political instability was palpable. The Idoids, once Rome's allies, had been trounced by their Gallic foes, bolstered by the Germanic Suebi under their formidable leader, Ariovistus. To add to the tension, the Helvetii were preparing for a mass migration, sparking fears of war. Determined to restore order, and perhaps enrich himself, Caesar quickly raised 2 new legions and launched a campaign. His first targets? The Helvetii and Ariovistus. With strategic brilliance and military prowess, he triumphed over both, establishing a winter camp in the Squani region, signaling that his ambitions extended well beyond mere temporary gains. As Caesar entered his second year of conquest, he faced the daunting challenge of a weakened military. Despite this, he managed to raise 2 more legions in Cisalpine Gaul during the winter months, though the legitimacy of his forces was questionable. After all, the locals were not Roman citizens. Meanwhile, the Belgic tribes in northeastern Gaul, sensing the encroaching Roman threat, began arming themselves. Viewing this as a direct act of aggression, Caesar prepared for conflict. Following a series of skirmishes against a united Belgic army, he gradually subdued the tribes. In the midst of these military maneuvers, Caesar's forces were also making strides in the Armorican Peninsula, with Publius Crassus leading one legion into battle against local tribes. Amidst the backdrop of military glory, political tension brewed back in Rome. The populist campaigns led by Claudius threatened to destabilize the delicate balance of power between Caesar, Crassus, and Pompey. In the spring of 56 BC, a crucial conference in Lucca saw the three leaders regroup and renew their alliance, known as the First Triumvirate. This meeting not only extended Caesar's command for another 5 years, but also solidified the political landscape of Rome, with Crassus heading to Syria and Pompey taking charge of the Spanish provinces. With renewed support, Caesar turned his focus back to Gaul. He completed the conquest of Armorica with a decisive naval victory over the Veneti, showcasing not only his military acumen on land, but also his prowess at sea. Meanwhile, the young Crassus made significant gains in Aquitania. By the end of 56 BC, Caesar had solidified his control over Gaul, leaving only the Morenii and Menapii as the remaining coastal tribes. The dispute between Julius Caesar and Pompey is one of the most famous rivalries in Roman history, leading to a civil war that would reshape Rome forever. Initially, the two were allies in a powerful political alliance known as the First Triumvirate, along with the wealthy and influential Crassus. Together, they held significant control over Roman politics, but the alliance was unstable and ultimately collapsed under the weight of personal ambitions and political differences. The First Triumvirate and early tension. The alliance began in 60 BC, with Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus combining their resources and influence to dominate Roman politics. Caesar, as consul, pushed through legislation beneficial to Pompey's veterans and Crassus' interests. In return, he gained crucial support for his military campaigns. Crassus' death in 53 BC, while campaigning in Parthia, shattered the balance, leaving Caesar and Pompey as the two dominant figures. Caesar's military successes in Gaul made him popular with the people and bolstered his power. This alarmed many in the Senate, who viewed him as a threat to the Republic. Pompey, who had previously enjoyed unrivaled power, felt his own influence waning compared to Caesar's growing popularity and success. His alliance with the Senate became tighter as a way to counterbalance Caesar's rise. Additionally, Caesar's marriage alliance with Pompey ended with the death of Caesar's daughter Julia, Pompey's wife. This personal connection had helped stabilize their relationship, and her death in 54 BC further strained it. The Senate, especially the faction led by Cato the Younger, feared Caesar's ambitions and saw him as a potential dictator. They began supporting Pompey as a means of reigning in Caesar. Pompey was appointed sole consul in 52 BC, effectively making him the guardian of the Republic. The Senate's support of Pompey against Caesar pushed him to take a stand, especially when they demanded that Caesar disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Faced with the prospect of losing his power and possibly his life, Caesar famously crossed the Rubicon River in 49 BC with his army, effectively declaring war on the Senate and Pompey. This decision marked the start of a civil war. Caesar's phrase, "Alia acta est," the die is cast, became iconic, symbolizing his commitment to this irreversible action. The Battle of Pharsalus, fought on August 9, 48 BC, was a decisive confrontation between Julius Caesar and Pompey, the Great during the Roman Civil War. It marked a turning point in the conflict where Caesar, despite being outnumbered, achieved a dramatic victory that ultimately shifted power in Rome and paved the way for the end of the Roman Republic. While Caesar moved quickly to secure control over Italy, Pompey and his supporters fled to Greece to regroup and gather reinforcement. By 48 BC, both forces were in Greece. Pompey's army was considerably larger, with around 45,000 infantry and 7,000 cavalry, compared to Caesar's roughly 22,000 infantry and 1,000 cavalry. Pompey also had the advantage of resources and a strong supply chain. Knowing he had superior numbers, Pompey initially avoided direct confrontation, aiming to starve Caesar's forces into submission by cutting off their supplies. Some of Pompey's advisors, however, argued that he should leverage his numbers to attack Caesar directly. Under pressure from these advisors and prominent senators in his camp, Pompey decided to engage Caesar's forces on open ground near Pharsalus in Thessaly, Greece. Caesar, aware of his disadvantages, employed a clever strategy to counter Pompey's larger cavalry force. Anticipating that Pompey's cavalry would target his right flank, Caesar stationed a fourth line of seasoned troops behind his own cavalry. This reserve line would provide a surprise counterattack to any cavalry breakthroughs. Caesar instructed these troops to specifically target the faces of Pompey's cavalry, an unexpected and brutal tactic that would demoralize Pompey's horsemen. When the battle began, Pompey's cavalry charged on Caesar's right flank, as expected. Caesar's hidden fourth line of infantry advanced and threw Pompey's cavalry into disarray, forcing them to retreat. With Pompey's cavalry neutralized, Caesar ordered a full advance of his infantry lines. The disciplined and battle-hardened legions pressed forward, breaking through Pompey's lines. Pompey's troops, particularly the less experienced conscripts, struggled to maintain cohesion under the pressure of Caesar's forces. Eventually, Pompey's army fell into disarray, and his men began to flee. Realizing the battle was lost, Pompey abandoned the field and fled to Egypt, where he hoped to find refuge. However, upon his arrival, he was assassinated by orders of the Egyptian pharaoh Ptolemy XIII, who sought to win Caesar's favor. Caesar pursued his political opponents across the Mediterranean, consolidating his power. His victory at Pharsalus effectively ended major opposition to his dominance in Rome, allowing him to secure his position as dictator. The relationship between Cleopatra and Julius Caesar is one of the most captivating tales of love, power, and political strategy in history. Cleopatra, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic kingdom of Egypt, was renowned for her sharp intellect and formidable political skill. Her encounter with Caesar in 48 BC marked a pivotal moment not just for Egypt but for Rome itself. Their fateful meeting took place against the backdrop of turmoil. Cleopatra was embroiled in a fierce civil war with her brother, Ptolemy XIII, who had seized the throne. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria, pursuit of his rival Pompey, Cleopatra recognized an opportunity. She famously orchestrated a dramatic entrance. Legend has it that she had herself rolled up in a carpet and delivered to Caesar's quarters, emerging like a vision to plead for his support. This legendary moment not only showcased her daring, but also her understanding of theatricality as a political tool. The relationship that blossomed between them was as much about strategy as it was about romance. With Caesar's backing, Cleopatra successfully reclaimed her throne, while Caesar gained access to Egypt's vast resources and critical military support. Their union bore fruit in the form of a son, Ptolemy XV Philopator Caesar, affectionately known as Caesarion, or Little Caesar. This child symbolized the merging of two powerful lineages and served as a living testament to their alliance. On March 17, 45 BC, the sun rose over southern Hispania, modern-day Andalusia, setting the stage for the climactic showdown of Julius Caesar's civil war against the Optimates. This was no ordinary battle. It was the Battle of Munda, a fierce clash that would determine the fate of Rome and solidify Caesar's power. At this point, Caesar found himself deeply in debt, but he saw an opportunity for fortune and fame as the provincial governor of Hispania. Commanding 4 legions, he faced a landscape ripe for conquest. To the north, the chaotic Gauls stirred, and to the east, the formidable Germanic Suebi under Ariovistus threatened Roman allies. The Helvetii were mobilizing for a mass exodus, raising alarms in Rome. Sensing the instability, Caesar raised 2 additional legions and launched campaigns against these tribes, securing his foothold in the region. By the time of the Battle of Munda, the political landscape was fraught with tension. After defeating Pompey's forces at the Battle of Thapsus in April 46 BC, Caesar faced lingering opposition from the remnants of Pompey's army in Hispania, led by Gnaeus and Sextus Pompeius, Pompey's sons. These forces had rallied former Pompeian veterans and controlled key territories, including the vital Roman colonies of Italica and Cordoba. Caesar, undeterred, marched an astonishing 1,500 miles from Rome to Hispania in less than a month, demonstrating his relentless ambition. He summoned his nephew, Octavian, to join him, but Octavian's health kept him from the campaign. Upon his arrival in Hispania Baetica, Caesar discovered that Pompeius' forces were besieging Iulia, one of the few cities loyal to him. He dispatched Lucius Vibius Bassicus with reinforcements, who made a daring midnight march through enemy lines, sneaking into the city amidst a raging storm. While Bassicus bolstered Iulia's defenses, Caesar turned his attention to Cordoba, which was under siege by Sextus Pompeius. A fierce skirmish erupted as Caesar's vanguard clashed with Pompeius's cavalry. Recognizing the threat, Gnaeus abandoned his siege of Eulia to support his brother. Sextus's forces had destroyed the bridge leading to Cordoba, but Caesar, never one to back down, constructed a temporary bridge to bring his army across the Guadalquivir River. A fierce battle ensued at the bridge, with both sides suffering heavy losses. Yet Caesar sought a decisive confrontation, which eluded him. Under the cover of darkness he slipped away from his camp and marched to the fortified city of Attica, laying siege to it. There he prepared for the impending confrontation with the Pompeian brothers. At Attica, Caesar entrenched himself, but Gnaeus and Labienus planned a surprise attack. The fog obscured their movements, allowing them to catch some of Caesar's soldiers off guard. However, Caesar had strategically captured the high ground, giving him a critical advantage. As winter set in, Caesar's forces were bolstered by allies, including King Bogud of Mauritania. Gnaeus, wary of engaging in open battle, chose to delay. Meanwhile, morale began to wane among Pompeius's troops, especially after Caesar's forces captured Attica, a significant blow to their confidence. With momentum shifting, Caesar established a camp across the Salsum River, where Gnaeus launched a surprise attack. Thanks to the valor of his centurions, Caesar's forces held the line. After a skirmish near Sorcaria that favored Caesar, many in Pompeius's camp began to contemplate defection. Faced with dwindling support, Gnaeus was forced to abandon his delaying tactics and march towards Munda. The stage was set for the final clash. As Caesar prepared his legions for battle, he knew that victory would not only secure his power, but also reshape the future of Rome. The Battle of Munda was not just a conflict. It was the culmination of ambition, loyalty, and the relentless pursuit of glory. In the end, Caesar's forces triumphed, leading to the death of key adversaries, including Titus Labienus and Gnaeus Pompeius. With this victory, Caesar returned to Rome a hero, celebrated as a military savior, and appointed as dictator. The assassination of Julius Caesar stands as one of history's most notorious political murders, a dramatic event that signifies the shift from the Roman Republic to the era of the Roman Empire. By 44 BC, Caesar had reached the pinnacle of his power, having been named Dictator Perpetuo, or Dictator for Life, by the Senate. This unprecedented authority alarmed many, particularly within the Senate, who feared that Caesar's dominance threatened the very foundations of the Republic and heralded an age of tyranny. Fearing for their political future, a group of about 60 senators formed a conspiracy known as the Liberators, positioning themselves as guardians of Roman liberty. Among them were notable figures such as Gaius Cassius Longinus and Marcus Junius Brutus, a man who had once been a trusted ally of Caesar. The conspirators, driven by a sense of duty to restore traditional governance, meticulously planned their strike for March 15, 44 BC, the infamous Ides of March. This date was not only significant in the Roman calendar, but also offered a rare opportunity to confront Caesar in the Senate House without the protection of his bodyguards. As the fateful day approached, a soothsayer famously warned Caesar to beware the Ides of March. However, in a display of hubris, he dismissed the warning. When Caesar entered the theater of Pompey, where the Senate convened that day, he walked into a trap. Surrounded by the conspirators, he faced a brutal onslaught as each senator took turns delivering fatal blows, ultimately inflicting 23 wounds upon him. According to the accounts of Roman historians Plutarch and Suetonius, Caesar initially fought back against his attackers. However, upon seeing Brutus among them, he reportedly ceased to resist, leading to the legendary phrase, "Et tu, Brute?" And you, Brutus? While the authenticity of this iconic last line is debated, it encapsulates the profound betrayal he felt. The assassination did not restore the Republic as the conspirators had envisioned. Instead, it unleashed a wave of civil wars that irrevocably altered the course of Roman history. A legacy of betrayal and transformation. The assassination of Julius Caesar remains a powerful symbol of ambition, betrayal, and the complex interplay of power. It serves as a reminder of how the actions of a few can reshape the destiny of a civilization, turning the tide of history in a single, fateful moment. In the end, Caesar's death did not merely conclude a life. It ignited a transformation that would shape the future of Rome and the world for centuries to come.